Well, thanks everybody for coming. Normally, the first thing we would do is have the remote participation confirmation so that those of us who are joining remotely can get basically voted in by those who are there in person. But because we don't have a quorum, we can't actually vote in those who are working remotely, catch 22. So we can skip the remote participation confirmation. We'll call the meeting to order. And the other thing we can't do because we don't have a quorum in the room is actually vote on the minutes from last month's meeting. But I would like to entertain any questions or comments about the minutes from the December meeting, if anyone has any. We will, assuming we have a quorum next month, we will just vote on both December and January minutes at that time as a formal approval. Questions, comments?
I think it might be good in the meantime, if we haven't already, to publish at least in a draft form so people don't have to wait for 2 months to see at least the draft minutes of what happened last month.
They're in the handouts for today's meeting.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know they're in the handouts, but I'm just saying for people who are accustomed to looking in the list and kind of clicking on the meeting itself, what happened. Just a thought. Maybe Tony and David, you can talk about that offline.
Yeah, I mean, my thinking was, yeah, we can talk about it and see. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah, I agree that they are. Somebody could find them if they looked from the handouts.
Okay. So let's ask for any public comments before we get to announcements. Don't see
Tony,
anybody.
there's nobody in the room joining us today, but we do have a few people online.
Okay. And if any of those folks online would like to make public comments to the JMRL Board of Trustees, please either raise your hand or I guess chat is disabled, is it not, David?
That's correct. It's use the raise hand function.
Yes.
Last chance for, oh, here we go. Cynthia Ailing would like to make a comment. I'm going to allow her to speak now. Miss Ailing, you're currently muted, but go ahead once you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I would just like to know the status of the naming of Jefferson Madison Regional Library. This has been an ongoing discussion for quite a while, and where does it stand now? Thank you.
Thank you. We do have an agenda item coming up under committee appointments and reports. The library name working group is going to give a status update, as they do every month, but that'll be a status report of where the library name change stands as of this date. I hope that answers your question.
Anybody else for public comment online?
Okay.
Tony, I think that's it.
All right. So we can move into announcements. I believe we have some announcements. David, would you like to go first?
Well, sure. It's the announcement that I have is Lisa's announcement. Lisa, are you with us?
I am with us.
Would you like to make an announcement?
Would you like to make an announcement, Lisa?
Why do I have to do it, y'all? Well, hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My announcement is that I am stepping down from the JMRL Library Trustees Board. It has been a great honor and privilege to work with you all in this way and to work in the community. And I remember David when my kids were little, and David was the children's librarian at our library, #1 Gordon Library. Woo woo. And it was just so powerful to see him grow into leadership in this way, and to have someone who has such rigorous affection and faith in what it means to develop public knowledge and what it means to hold that in trust and to hold that sacred and to be nice to other people, to care for those who care for the public. It's just been really wonderful to see that development. And so when I was invited, I was incredibly honored and remain honored. And I'm going to hold that with me as I step away. Things have just gotten to the point where, you know, seasons change and things shift. And so some things have been changing and shifting. And I do not want my commitment to this board to be pulled in so many different directions. And so it feels like the better thing to do is to let somebody else new and fresh come in and devote fresh new energy to this really exciting work. You all are amazing, utterly amazing. I have enjoyed working with each and every one of you. And that's that for me.
And I just want to say thank you, Lisa, for all the hard work that you put in even before I got here. I know that there was a really good body of work that I inherited, and we're going to miss you. We really are going to miss you. So, but we wish you well in whatever journey you're embarking upon. So, thank
you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'm not leaving Charlottesville often, or yet, I might say. But I'm around. So I'm around. If there's any questions or concerns, or you need somebody to, you know, kick things up from outside, you know, I'm absolutely great for stuff like that.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony, as per tradition, the library is going to add a book, a nameplate on a book for every year of Lisa's service to JMRL. Lisa, we will house them at Gordon Avenue, I think. And I'll read you the titles here. I don't have the books with me. They're not in yet. But Africa Risen, a new era of speculative fiction, edited by Cherie Renee Thomas, Ojika Nachove, Donald Ekpeki, and Zelda Knight. That was the first one. Reconstruction, stories by Alea Dawn Johnson, who's a Nebula award-winning speculative fiction author. Black Girl Sew, Projects and Patterns to Stitch and Make Your Own by Hakima Hapa and Leslie Ware, who you had on your podcast. You will be able to sew your own clothes by the end of this book by Juliette Russell. And lastly, Stitching Stolen Lives, Amplifying Voices, Empowering Youth, and Building Empathy Through Quilts by Sarah Trail and Teresa Juria Wong, who were also featured on your podcast.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, wow. Wow. Thank you. You really honor me. You really honor me. And I'm really honored to have my name associated with the circulation of those works. Like, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, David, I think I need to reserve the one where you can make your own clothes by a year. Put that on hold.
Okay. Well, it's hard to follow that, I got to say. Any other announcements, David?
None on my end.
Very good. Anybody, other trustees, staff members? Okay.
I'm trying to see where I raised my hand. This is Wendy. I just wanted to report from the Friends. We were scheduled to meet last week, but had to reschedule. So we have a meeting at the end of the month for our rescheduled meeting. If anybody has any information or anything to ask or whatever, I will report back after that. So it'll be our next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Nothing else. We'll move on to our continuing education. And this month we have a presentation by Haley Tompkins, the heart and soul of the Crozet Library, who is going to talk about the JMRL Staff Training Committee.
Where you want me? Yeah, you can turn that. Is the microphone on? No. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, David. You're gonna be my driver.
Yes, just give it a thumbs up for the next slide.
Okay, so I am Haley Tompkins. I'm the training committee chair and the Crozet Library branch manager, if you don't already know me. And I'm here to talk to you about the training committee, which we started in 2019. And I feel it has been a roaring success. So next slide, please. So we'll talk about when and why it started. Previously, the only committee that was related to training was the in-service day committee. And it met to only discuss in-service day, that the annual in-service day that happened once a year. And it kind of rotated staff members, but it also had a few core people that stayed on it kind of indefinitely for a very long time. I was first on it in like 2012 when I was working at the Gordon Avenue Library. And I noticed, especially as a manager, a need for more staff involvement year-round on training issues. We also had one staff member who was also the Gordon Avenue Library branch manager, who was in charge of the training manual and sending out training resources to all staff once a month. And that's really burdensome for just one person to do, especially when they're running the branch. And so there wasn't a ton that was happening with it. And they were also responsible for organizing and setting up the training manual, which kind of got stale over time as well, because it's a big job for any one person to do. So as a manager, I was realizing we need more support in training offerings. I had staff members who weren't meeting their training on a regular basis, and they were also kind of like not sure about what would even be interesting to them to meet these requirements. So I came to David during one of our annual assessments, and I said, wouldn't it be great? We had a training committee made up of people from all over the branch and different roles and stuff. And he said, that's a great idea, and you should run it. And I said, I will do that. So I was actually very excited to start it. So we started that in December of 2019. So who it's composed of is 12 members from different branches and departments. This is the current slate of people representing different roles in our system. So at Central, we have David, Krista, Sierra, and Michael. Central Reference, Nita and Abby. Central Children's Shelver, Tim Kerwin. Nelson, Susan, and Megan. And Crozet has me and Dakota. Louisa has Casey, and Northside now has Shannon. She's actually new as of 2 days ago, so she hasn't actually met with us yet. We'll talk, there's some other previous, did I even put, no, I'm missing one, Meredith. I don't know why she's not on this list. Meredith is also on this, and she's a big part of this, and I talk about her later on in the slides, so you'll see that too. Sorry, Meredith, in advance. Organization is into 3 subcommittees with different focuses. So from the outset, I said, there's a lot of training things that we need to focus on. David had mentioned, hey, by the way, we have a cross-training plan that we need to implement. That's part of our five-year plan. So we broke it up, and we called these different things at different times, but they are called now the training events subcommittee, the training resources subcommittee, and the cross-training subcommittee. And you can see there what that kind of entails, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But the training events focuses specifically on all staff training day plus 3-year events. Training resources focuses on, they did the training plan, they overhauled it and update it regularly. They pulled together training staff, training resources, and they are now setting up the Niche Academy organization, which is a great training tool that I'll talk about a little bit later as well, where we house all of our webinars that we've created, plus some more. And then cross-training is what it is. So it does cross-training, and they're also talking about staff portfolios, which we haven't fully fleshed out yet, but that's in the works. We meet all together every other month as a big group, and then the subcommittees meet in between. So we each do a little bit. So we have big group work that's going on every other month, and then smaller group work that happens. So we're getting a lot done in just one meeting a month, which is really great. Next slide, please. All right, so we'll start with what we've accomplished for training events. There's a lot. So this started out with planning the in-service day committee, which we changed the name of. It's another thing we've accomplished, because staff training day is a lot more intuitive for people who are new to JMRL. And also to the public, when we say we're closed for staff for in-service day, a lot of people don't know what that means. So staff training day. We've pivoted to, so we started in December 2019 as a committee, and then we started planning this great in-person, you know, hullabaloo of training. It was going to happen at a big fancy hotel. It was going to be great. And then March 2020 hit, and we had to pivot to all virtual, which had never been done. And that was really interesting, but it had a lot of great things that came out of it too. So one of which was that we were able to record all of the programs that were there, and then offer them to people. So we usually have several breakout things that happen simultaneously. So staff can choose to go to one breakout session during one period and one breakout session for another. And this way we were able to record all three at each breakout session, and staff could attend those later on. So that was really nice to see the little picture at the bottom, a little screenshot of all the little webinars that were available from just that one in-service day, which it was called then. And then 2021, we were thinking, should we try to do this in person again? We ended up going with virtual again, just because it seems a little risky, and I'm glad that we did, because we had a big resurgence in the fall of 2021, and we had great success with that. And then we came back again. So now we planned the first in-person in-service day in 2022. We were ready for a little bit of backlash. People were used to coming in their pajamas to in-service day, to staff training day. And we were pleasantly surprised. We had a lot of really positive feedback, and it was really great to have everybody meet again. You can see the staff, the free press, which is our staff newsletter, with the pictures of that training day meeting on the stairs. And we had my Monticello author, Jocelyn, oh my gosh, Johnson, there we go. Thank you. Yeah, so we had her give a talk, and she was phenomenal. People were really excited to hear everything from her. We introduced new EDI tracks that we had never been able to do before, where we had 3 simultaneous sessions that were focused on EDI at our training days. And so that also helps people fulfill their training, their EDI requirements for training, which we'll talk about too. We also plan regular through-the-year trainings. So we had an HR seminar prior to open enrollment this past May. We had assessment training for managers ahead of annual assessments. So the people, especially who were new, had never done it before. And we hadn't really had one of those since I had been a manager. So that was a really nice thing to offer people, and we could all talk about the various ways that we do our annual assessments all together. Meredith offers a huge amount of regular trainings on create lists, new DEI, collection tool training, readers advisory, collection maintenance, all kinds of great things she offers just all of the time. Customer service and CERC roundtable are headed up by Brittany Eversberg, our circulation manager, and we just started a new notary roundtable training, and that's been really nice too, to offer support to our notaries in all of the different branches and have them get to come together and talk about some of the things that they're experiencing, because it can be a hard job, and it's nice to be able to share notes about that. And then we created this repository for recorded trainings and resources to find them in our Google Drive, which is now moving to Nisha County, which I'll talk about on the next slide. So our training resources committee is headed up by, I'll say that the training events resources, training events subcommittee is headed by me, and Meredith Diggins heads up the training resources subcommittee. They did a complete overhaul of the JMRL staff training program manual, which is amazing. So it's easy to read, it's understandable, it has all these links to the different trainings, so it's very easy to find everything, which wasn't before. It's much more up to date than it had ever been before, with a lot of cross-referencing within itself. Sierra is also on that. Thank you, Sierra. They created tracks for people to follow. So if you're new to JMRL, there's a track for that. You can select new to JMRL, and it will give you all the resources, all the training suggestions for things that can help fulfill that. And then they identified training gaps and found ways to help fill them. So again, EDI was a new training requirement that we were asking people to fulfill, and they created a track that lets you like select different things, which is nice. And they also put an article in the training or in the free press so that staff can stay up to date on training news. That's really nice. Next slide, please. Cross training committee.
Sorry, sure.
So our cross training has gone off swimmingly. It has been great. So that this subcommittee is led by Susan Huffman, Nelson's branch manager. They created and implemented a cross training plan that started this past July, with a focus starting on circulation. And that was made to be able to allow people to float to other branches when they need help. So Sierra, who is trained in circulation from Jose, has also gone to Scottsville and to Nelson, and she is like the queen of cross training, really, because she's been helping out to many different places. And then they're also creating a template for future cross training goals. So in other departments that might need help as well. The results have been that we have a lot better communication between staff. We're finding common ground where I think a lot of people have a general idea of what goes on at other branches, but it's a lot more hands-on experience. Somebody who's never worked at Northside before can say, oh, that's a lot of bins that you guys have to check in every day. But I don't have to do that every day. Or I see what your drive-up window looks like. I didn't realize what kind of need that filled or how it worked. So here you can see on the top corner is Kaylin Pressler from Scottsville trading with Mary Beth Perry, who was on our side at the time, who now actually works at Scottsville. So cross training in action, she ended up liking it so much that when there was an opening, she went there. And it's also created a way for us to share ideas with each other. I've worked at 4 different branches at JMRL, and I've gotten to take ideas from one branch to another, but I've seen people come back talking about like, hey, they set this up over here this way. Can we try that? And that's a great thing to be able to do for people to see and gather ideas from other people. You can see AJ Mosley down there at the bottom. My favorite anecdote from Brittany's, who said when he was on her circuit, this is why you need to order so many rubber bands. Because he hadn't worked on circ desk before, and he orders all the rubber bands for them. So why they do that. Next slide. So what we've accomplished overall, we've created a lot of digital forms to make tracking easier for managers and staff. A digital suggestion for training forms, so that any staff member at any time can say, hey, I would like this training that's in the training plan, or I would like to see a training offered like this on a topic that they didn't, that maybe we don't have as an offer yet. We've created more access points on the internet to help make finding training information a lot easier. And we've updated the training requirements so that there's an EDI and a cross-training requirement that you can see in the columns over there. And that's a little table from our staff training plan of how much people are expected to get. And then the biggest thing is that staff and managers are more empowered in their own training. So they are able to say, hey, this is something that I need. This is how I can get it. And they can help advance their career path that way if that's the way they want to go. They can find things that can help them grow as an employee, and they can know where and how to get it. Next slide. Here's what we're working on now. So we're creating new tracks for cross training, like I mentioned. So things in tech services, so people can know how books get to where they go. In bookmobile is kind of a circulation cross training, but is in dire need right now of that cross training. We're also working on Niche Academy. So you can see a little screenshot of this tool that we have. So in about a month or so, we're hoping to roll this out, and it's a way for us to store all of those resources, all those webinars that we've created, in addition to other ones that are pre-prepared or prepared by other libraries. So there's a Citizen Science Month one down there. There's ones from our databases, from our ebooks, and our other library resources that people can take on their own and get training time for. So it's a really easy way for people to just say, I need X amount of training hours, and go in and click on the ones that apply to them. And this is another way that's easy for managers to be able to track what their staff have done, because the managers on that side can see how much a staff member has done. We're always working on training events, so that's also what we're working on now. And we have an article sharing club that Abby Davis of Central Reference has proposed, where everybody reads an article relating to library service from one of our library journals, and then we set a time aside around lunch that people can share and talk about it. So it's kind of like a book club for an article that relates to library services, and we can talk about that, which is exciting. So those are some of the things we're working on now. And then always planning the next all-staff training day. And that's a wrap. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yes, your cross training, how do you go about choosing where and when to do that?
I should have put a slide of the calendar that Susan made because it's beautiful. So with Susan Precision and Detail, there's this awesome calendar that says, okay, well, there's this minute. She gathered all the employees, all of the things that they did, made a list, and mostly it's small branches trading with either Northside or Central. So that's how the numbers worked out. But basically, so in my branch, we have 12 staff members, and one person a month basically goes. And we decided on Thursdays at 3 p.m. because overall, that's the time that most people can make that training work, but it's very, very flexible with the ability for someone to say, okay, well, you know, this person is actually sick today, they have to come for a different day, or that person doesn't work on Thursdays at 3 p.m. normally, so do it a different time. Some people work in the morning, some trade, but it's been really, really nice. So she gathered all the information from all the branches and all the managers and set up a kind of a timetable. And it's just kind of it's a loose timetable so that if, like I said, if there's a need for flexibility, then it's there.
I think Wendy has a question.
I just wondered along the same lines, how long of a time do they spend at the alternate branch?
That's a good question too. So there is a table that says how much a person needs, but if they want to go for a little bit longer, they can go for longer. So, and it kind of depends on that person's schedule that's going there that day. So I had, the last person I had coming from Northside came for 3 hours, and she traded with Rhonda, who had a program that she needed to come back for, so she was only at Northside for 2 hours. But it's also based on like what that person might need or want, so it's kind of flexible for the staff members themselves. And I let my employees kind of choose which place they wanted to go.
And the minimum annual requirement for a full-time staff, I think, was 2 hours. Is that right?
Yeah.
So minimum 2 hours, but there has to be some flexibility if somebody's going to travel all the way across JMRL. That sometimes
Right, that's what I was wondering.
So, spent half my time driving.
I was here at Northside for 4 hours with Latasha because it was like, show me all the things. I used to work here, but it was under very different circumstances and not in the same building. And how was your time at work? And give me all your reference handouts, but I don't have my branch. Any questions?
Any other questions for Haley? I think this is a great initiative. I really appreciate you heading it up and moving it forward. This is great.
Ditto. Yeah.
You can tell them that.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're on to committee appointments and reports, and I think the first report we have is from the Library Name Working Group.
Yes, so the Library Name Working Group met last week, finishing up on gathering all the data on public and staff input to make a presentation to the board. And they're currently working on a procedure to adopt should the jurisdictions ever ask JMRL to review the name of the library. So at this point, the working group is starting to wrap up. We are, of course, losing a member with Lisa stepping down from the board. So if anyone is interested in volunteering to help wrap up the work here, please reach out to me or Tony, and you can join the working group. We anticipate probably 2, potentially 3 more meetings before being able to make a presentation to the board.
Questions? And I'd like to, again, thank Lisa and Mike for their very hard work on this, as well as the staff. Been a long process. I know we have a ways to go, but it's very, very much appreciated. Report from the 5-year plan committee.
So actually, this is more of a, the 5-year plan committee has not met, but this is more of a board action item here without a vote. So the current plan that JMRL is operating under expires in the end of June 2024, so a little bit over a year from now. There's a lot of work to do to start on a new 5-year plan. And similar to the library name working group, we are losing Lisa from the 5-year plan committee that she chaired. So Meredith Cole has agreed to step in as the chair for now. Thank you, Meredith. And there likely will need to be monthly, at worst bi-monthly at best, meetings between now and next June in order to give a plan in place for the board to vote on then. We're going to kind of follow the lead. Meredith and I talked briefly, and Tony and I also talked briefly, of the tech committee, looking to develop a high-level board document with general guidance and then assigned responsibilities for staff. So it might look a bit different from the last 5-year plan, but the 5-year plan committee members should look forward to an invitation to a meeting here in the next few days. So thank you, Lisa, for your work on that committee as well.
Yeah, it's an important job. I've served on the 5-year plan committee. It's very interesting work too. So, and thank you, Meredith, for stepping up and helping us get this out the door, because the deadline is approaching. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Meredith. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for your support.
Okay, new business. David, I think, has an update on the JMRL NAACP scholarship.
Yes, so there's traditionally a mid-April deadline for this scholarship. We had a very successful run last year publicizing it, and we had quite a few applicants and a wonderful scholarship winner who worked at Gordon Avenue, Nande Hogue, last summer. Alita worked with myself and a member of the Charlottesville Albemarle NAACP Education Committee to select last year's winner. As part of that process, Alita and I did identify some issues. There was not enough, in our opinion, guidance on age ranges that we were looking for. There wasn't a specific rubric for decision making on a scholarship winner. So I'm hoping that Alita is willing to help again with this process. And I'd like to get a little subcommittee together before we put it out to the public to kind of clean those things up. So if anyone is interested in that scholarship and potentially meeting once or twice just to look at the materials that we put out to make sure that they're in line with what the process is, then reach out to me.
Questions? I know that last year was very successful, and I hope we can build on that in this coming year and years going forward. Thank you, David. Everyone's favorite, the fiscal year 22 audit. Director Plunkett, I believe this is your item.
Yes. So I'll run on the assumption that everybody read the audit.
Let's go with that story. I like that. Yes.
The bottom line, we're really looking for two things organizationally. We're looking to see if there was any findings of any fund balance that exceeded our 5% threshold, which would mean money going back to the jurisdictions, and there was no fund balance exceeding 5%. And then we're looking for deficiencies in internal control that could be considered a material weakness. Those are the auditorial language for it. And there were no deficiencies in internal control that could be considered a material weakness. So bottom line is that this codifies for JMRL a few things: what the fund balance is, what the equipment budget was at the beginning of the fiscal year, and then what assets are currently. Since JMRL owns no real property, the assets largely that we're talking about are books and materials, which do get figured in there. So if you consider it to be a report card, which it's not, it was a good report card. It's posted up on our webpage, and we sent it off to the state of Virginia too, which we're required to do in mid-December. Our audit has not been ready by mid-December in many, many years now, but that's a little outside of our hands. The city of Charlottesville's auditors contract to do JMRL's auditors, and they usually the city takes top priority. Tony, in the past, we have had the auditor come in and talk to the board about their findings. That is always an option. And if the board is interested, I could ask the auditor for either the February or March meeting.
Would that be of interest to folks? I mean, I actually had read the audit report, but I didn't want to be the only one who hadn't. So is that of interest to folks? I know we've had a presentation from the auditor in the past, as David mentioned. And Yes, no? I'm not hearing a groundswell of positivity. Wendy is raising her hand. Wendy, yes.
Oh, I would just say, the benefit for having the person there was to explain any particulars that were of attention in the audit, and I'm going with David's summary. But yes, so I don't necessarily require one, but that's just me.
I think that's a very wise way to look at it, Wendy, and I'm perfectly willing to do that, unless anyone else feels strongly enough that they'd like to indeed hear from the auditors. Okay. Well, yes, David, we'll take your summation as gospel. Thank you.
Okay, well, their auditors they're available at any time during the year too. It doesn't have to be just now. So if something comes up and board members have questions, we can always ask them to come back later.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Okay. Under the category of old business, a budget update for the coming fiscal year, David?
Yes, JMRL has met for our annual budget meetings with 3 of our 5 jurisdictions. We've met with Charlottesville, Albemarle, and Louisa. So thank you to the trustees who were able to join those meetings. We're meeting this week with Nelson and Greene. So we'll be done with all of our kind of beginning of budget season meetings with staff at the jurisdictions this week. So far, all the jurisdictions have been very supportive. The main driving changes in the budget for fiscal year 24 are year 2 of the minimum wage adjustment plan, and then changes in health insurance, cost of living, things that are kind of baked in most years. So there were no big surprises for any of the jurisdictions. We're now preparing to discuss with any elected officials that have questions about the proposed budget for next year. I will report that with both the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County, the central library renovation came up as a major topic of discussion, and there were definitely some interest from staff there about getting further information about where we are in that process. And I think things are moving along as those two are beginning to talk to each other about their capital budgets for the next few years. So nothing concrete to report there, but I think some positive momentum.
And
I'm sorry, Tony, go ahead.
I just like to mention anecdotally, it is nice to meet with, the organization that basically runs things. I mean, the County of Albemarle in my case, and get their opinions, because they're really, really highly favorable towards the library and the work that the library does. And the fact that we did manage to raise, thank you, David, the issue of central renovation, I think was great. And we just try to keep that momentum going.
And I can share the dates, the upcoming dates that are of importance for all 5 jurisdictions. Kind of the first step is when the staff will release their recommended budget. So the administrator for each jurisdiction. And the first of those is coming up on February 6th. There's going to be a preliminary budget overview in Louisa from the staff to the board. They'll have their final budget approval on April 16th. Then Albemarle, February 22nd, the county executive's recommended budget will go up. May 3rd will be the Board of Supervisors' final approval. Charlottesville, March 6th, the city manager's budget will be posted. April 11th will be their final approval. Greene, March 7th, the county administrator will make a budget presentation to their Board of Supervisors. Be adoption on May 9th. Nelson's schedule hasn't been published yet, but traditionally the county has adopted their budget at their final meeting in June with work sessions in March and April. So you can kind of circle those dates in your calendar for when JMRL will start to be able to put together a picture of what the staff at each jurisdiction are proposing to their elected officials. Then it's up to the elected officials to take it the next step and ask questions of us, or we can go make presentations.
And I would encourage all trustees in all the jurisdictions to attend at least one of those meetings and speak in favor of the library if you are so inclined, because I do think that having at least a presence there helps us. We don't want. I realize there's there are a lot of major budget issues that are much larger than the library, but having it just raised at each jurisdiction's budget info session at very least is always a good idea. So, any other questions on the budget? Okay. I'm sure David has left one or two things for the library director's report.
Yes, the green date, March 7th, the county administrator is making a budget presentation. So we can ask them about it when we meet this week too and see when an appropriate time to show up would be. Tony, I'm sorry, you said you're ready for the director's report?
Whenever you are.
Okay, thank you. I'm very pleased to report that JMRL is partnering with the Virginia Festival of the Book yet again on the Same Page program. Just take one and pass them. So for those that came to the library board meeting in person today, they're getting a copy of The Book of Delights by Ross Gay. Ross Gay is a National Book Award finalist, poet, and winner of the National Book Critics Circle Award. This is a book of essays, actually. So the author is coming to the Charlottesville area, and JMRL is going to be distributing hundreds of copies of this book throughout the region over the next month and a half or so in preparation for that visit, and be hosting book discussions. I have books for everybody that is attending virtually as well, and I can get them to you to your favorite branch, or just hang on to them until I see you again. So very excited to have Ross Gay coming. I'm very excited about this ongoing partnership with the Festival of the Book. March 25th, Saturday, March 25th is the date of the author event. More details to follow. Just a reminder to the board that your meeting is scheduled in Louisa next month. So I will try to arrange some transport for everyone. If you'd like to meet centrally and drive out to Louisa, we can get the library van and make arrangements that way. I wanted to take a moment to thank all of JMRL's volunteers, and especially former library board member and book repair volunteer extraordinaire, Melissa Dickens. Melissa and her team returned 1,762 books into circulation at Central and Gordon in 2022. That's over $25,000 in saved replacement funds. Those books didn't have to be bought again. Melissa also put on a program with her daughter, JMRL's own Meredith Dickens, in this room a few weeks ago on home book repair. It was very successful. So thanks to Melissa and all of JMRL's volunteers. Northside has a wonderful cadre of book repair volunteers who fixed 2,062 items last year, which is a value of over $30,000 returned to the community. So we couldn't do it without the folks that are working on our books on a regular basis. And the last thing I have to report is that I've been selected by the city to serve on their Downtown Mall Committee. It's a group of stakeholders tasked to envision the next 50 years of this public space. They're celebrating a 50-year anniversary there. I applied because the Central Library is an integral part of those discussions. And I'm looking forward to meeting with those stakeholders to discuss. I'll report back to the board periodically on the process that group makes. It's supposed to be a one-year appointment. That's all I have to report.
Okay. Thank you for doing that, David. That's in your free time, of course. Yeah. Right, exactly.
Don't volunteer to be the head of the committee.
I won't.
I have just one piece of anecdotal, I won't say it evidence, but an anecdote to relate that a patron at Crozet, who knows I'm on the board, stopped and thanked me for the lockers, the lockers outside Crozet. They have a very busy schedule, big family, and being able to pick up their books, at any time, 24/7 has just been an amazing thing for them. So they were very, very grateful. So that's working out. And I know that the Crozet staff have told me that there have been times where the lockers are full. So we're obviously getting our money's worth out of them. So.
Yes, they've been very popular, and we're working on some workflow, working out the kinks there. But Crozet actually has the double system. That's the only place that had the room really to fit two of them, and they have filled up. But I know that Ginny's have also gotten pretty close to filling up in Greene County. So very popular service. So thanks to the Friends of the Library and to the State Library for funding the majority of that.
All right, other matters that we have not yet touched upon. And if not, we will go on to future agenda items. We have a policy committee report next time?
Yes, there should be a policy committee report at the next meeting, and hopefully a 5-year plan committee report as well.
Good. And imagine a library name working group report.
Yes.
As well. Okay. Do we have a volunteer for continuing education, or do we need to work on that, or?
Yeah, I think we'll have to go look at the schedule and see who we've got left for this year. But I'm assuming we'll be able to provide a continuing ed.
Okay, sounds good. And then I trust as usual, after the meeting itself, we'll, trustees who are attending in person can take a tour of Louisa. I
Yes,
assume.
that would be great. I'm sure Ophelia would love to do that.
Okay, all right. Other agenda items that I'm forgetting. We will hopefully have a quorum and a physical quorum in Louisa, so we can approve both last month's minutes and this month's minutes. Take that. All right. If nothing else is on the agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, but we can't take a vote on it anyway, so let's.
Right. I'm trying to sneak out.
Yeah, we'll just make an executive decision to adjourn. There you go. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you all next month.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Lisa.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye, Lisa. See you. Bye.
Thank you.
Oh.